Good afternoon, happy Thursday. Thank you for this opportunity. I joined Tulsa Newcomers after Miss Amy introduced me, and I got to do some of the models' makeup 2 Novembers ago for the annual fashion show, and immediately I said, how do I join? These ladies have such an amazing vibe and aura about you. You're just so welcoming, so kind, so full of wisdom, and of course, so fun. So I had to join it, so I've been a member for about 14 months now, and when it came time, you all were asking for speaker suggestions. A couple of you had asked if it was okay to suggest, and I said absolutely. I speak to lots of different groups, from elementary school students about the importance of staying in school, to business owners about how you use your faith and the experiences in your life to shape how you want to run your business and how to set standards and how to make sure that the people you surround yourself with are people you want to do business along with. So today, I decided to, since this is a unique group, Amy asked me what I wanted to title this, and I decided I wanted to title it Poverty to Purpose. So I will tell you about my journey living in Vietnam, living in a hut, not knowing where our next meal would come from, not knowing if I'll ever be able to go to school, because in Vietnam you pay for everything. Education's not free there, to now living a life full of purpose, abundance, and surrounded by the most amazing people who uplift me every day. All right. So, here we go. It all started with this beautiful couple known as my parents. And we don't have very many photos of my parents and me growing up because, again, we were living in poverty. So the few photos that I have, I'm sharing with you, and I cherish them so much. So as you know, my mom is here with us. And my father is in heaven looking down on me. I'm sure he's just so proud and laughing at all the things I'm going to tell you about him. But my parents came from heartache and hardship. So my parents were born in North Vietnam, and if you know much about Vietnam's history, Vietnam had been through so much turmoil for the last few hundred years. And when communism started taking over in Vietnam, it started north, and so my parents, who were from North Vietnam, they fled to South Vietnam individually with their families before they ever even knew each other to escape communism. And my father joined the South Vietnamese military to fight against communism. He was in the military for 15 years, he was a captain, and he fought alongside U.S. troops, so he was an ally to the U.S. Meanwhile, my mom was a school teacher with 3 children from her first marriage. She's hilarious. She thinks she's whispering, and you don't want to whisper. Okay? So my parents were married before they ever met each other, so they had their previous marriages. And my mom was married to also a South Vietnamese officer, and he was very abusive in every which way you can think of. So she would run from him, he would drag her down, beat her, and make her stay with him. And she just went through so much. And so after the fall of Saigon, April 30th, 1975, when Vietnam officially became a communist country, because the North Vietnam had beat South Vietnam / the U.S. troops. So Vietnam became a communist country, and people like my father, who were allies to the U.S., who the new government now considers enemies, were put in what they call re-education camp. That's a fancy word for, you are our enemy, we're putting you through prison so you can learn your lesson, and now you're going to have to become communist and do what we say. So my dad was a POW, prisoner of war, for 10 years. And we didn't talk about it much because of obviously the PTSD, and he was still so upset. You know, after 15 years of fighting for your country, you lose the war, they put you in prison, your wife leaves you, his first wife left him for a communist. So he was a little bit full of bitter immediately following the war, but he always told me that the one thing that kept him alive and hopeful was his faith. He was a devout Catholic who prayed the rosary in his head every day when he was in prison, because the communists would not allow you to have Bibles, you did not have your religious freedoms, so he would pray in his head pet, the rosary, to keep him alive. He saw his brothers, die of malnourishment, die from losing hope, die from being sick, and he knew that he had to keep his hope alive through his faith. So he would say the rosary every afternoon, and he got through 10 years of being a prisoner of war. My mom, on the other hand, again, they have not met, became a widower, or a widow. She became a widow because her husband tried to escape being a prisoner of war, got on a boat, and was killed by pirates. I know this is such a wild story. And so after my dad got out of prison and his first wife divorced him and left him for a communist, and my mom was a widow, they were introduced by some family friends and they started dating. And where they lived was look at that, that's a hut. That's how we lived in Vietnam. Banana leaves, you would just grow your own things, and all we had was a little bicycle, so my dad would pedal me and my mom around. That was our form of, transportation. This is another earlier picture of them. They were at a friend's wedding. This was as fancy as they got. And then here comes trouble. My goodness, some things never change, right? So this is the earliest picture I have of myself. I'm about 2 years old because I was born on Christmas Day, 1989. And I truly was a Christmas surprise. I was about a month early, and so it was very unexpected. And my mom was she was much older in life. So there were obviously concerns about her health and me, and there was actually concerns about me being able to survive the birth. And so my dad said that while my mom was in the hospital, he ran to the cathedral in Vietnam, in Saigon, and got on his knees and prayed and said, "Please save my child." And I turned out all right. So I guess you could say God saved me. So again, we grew up in poverty. My dad could not get a job because there was prejudice against him. Even though he had skills and he had a high school degree, no one would offer him a job because he was considered an enemy. So my mom was a school teacher during the day, and then at night, she would be an entrepreneur. She would make desserts. She would sell textiles. She would do whatever she could to make ends meet since she was the breadwinner of our family. So I would say my entrepreneur spirit came from my mom and learning how to just use your grit and your resources to make it for your family. This is the saddest day of my life, but also the most life-changing day of my life. So in the early 90s, U.S. Congress passed a bill that would allow people like my father, who are considered allies to the U.S. during the war, the opportunity to move to America for the safety and the opportunity that America would provide. We were ecstatic about this opportunity. This was our chance as a family to get out of poverty and get an education. For me, the caveat to that was the U.S. government would get to determine who's qualified to come to the U.S. Well, because of paperwork complications, remember during the war, people would flee, they would lose documents, they would lose records. We were not able to prove that my mom left her first husband, who died at sea. So the U.S. saw it as my mom was still married to her first husband, and their marriage with my dad was not valid. So my mom was not qualified to come to the U.S. with me and my dad. I was the only one qualified because I was 4 years old, and my siblings from my mom's side, my half-siblings, were over the age of 15, so they did not qualify. So my parents had to make this heartbreaking, devastating decision. Do we stay together as a family in Vietnam, where we know people, we have each other, but we live in a hut, we have no way to get out of poverty, and our 4-year-old child will probably never get any type of education because we can't afford it? Or do we split our family up, take this opportunity to see if we can make something out of it, and eventually reunite the rest of our family? That's what we decided to do. So that is my brother, my sister, sister, my nephew, my mom and dad, and me. So this was our goodbye. And imagine being 4 years old and you're told that you will no longer see your mom or your siblings, but this was the best thing for your family. It's hard to understand that at 4 years old, right? And then think about this was 1994, before really email and Zoom and FaceTime and all those things. So we knew that it was going to be hard to communicate, right, to each other. And my mom's first fear was I was either going to resent her or forget her, right? But she knew she had to do it. And to this day, I will always say to Mom, like, I can't imagine doing what you did. And she says, yes, you can. When you become a mom, you will know that that is the right thing to do, right? Making sacrifices for your child is the best thing you could ever do for them. And that's what she did. Okay, so that day, we left Vietnam and we moved to Oklahoma City because there was a church and Catholic Charities sponsored us to move to Oklahoma City. We had no family, there was no reason to move to Oklahoma City other than the church says, we'll take them, right? So then we learned about this thing called tornadoes. Snow. And everything that Oklahoma weather offers. And we were like, man, yeah, we're not going to move to Oklahoma. But guess what? I'm an Okie. Never really moved away from Oklahoma until out of college, yeah. Well, Oklahoma just totally embraced us. You know how it is, the Oklahoma standard. We love people and we offer help. And I'm grateful to grow up in Oklahoma City because we had this huge Vietnamese refugee population. So we had people to help us through all kinds of things, like applying for food stamps, like getting your driver's license, things like that. So my dad and I lived in Section 8 housing. At the time, I had no idea I lived in what's called the projects, or that we were poor, because I grew up living in a hut. So now that I have a one-bedroom apartment, I thought we were rich, right? And it was Section 8 housing, secured with all kinds of law enforcement, because there were shootings happening all the time. But I didn't know that. I told my friends that I live in a gated community. I told them, you have no idea. Like, we are so rich that police patrol our neighborhood to make sure nobody steals from us. Nobody stole from us because we didn't have anything, but they're corporate against our hand because we lived in the projects. But you know what? Perspective, right? So, one of my dad's first jobs was he was a custodian for the Oklahoman, which is the state's largest newspaper back then, right? And so my dad was a custodian, and I thought my dad was a journalist. So I told all the neighborhood kids, you guys watch out, my dad's a journalist, he might write about you. He would bring home scraps of newspapers, and I was just so proud that we now have a house in this gated community, and my dad's a journalist, and I wanted to become a journalist just like my dad. And we would watch the 9 o'clock news every night, and once the news was over, it was time for bed. And because I watched the news, I was learning English so quickly. And I wanted to become a news journalist one day because I didn't really see anybody who looks like myself on TV. So I wanted to be that representation. We relied on the community like no other. This is my godbrother, Danny. And because my father would work overnight and things like that, my god family would take me and pick me up after school and basically raise me until my father would come home. And so that community that we built and the people who supported us, they're still part of our lives to this day. All right, here comes Miss Donna. Okay, so Donna, who I call Mommy, I didn't use the word Donna, but I call her Mommy. She was my Sunday school teacher at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Oklahoma City. And when I was about 11, I needed a place to stay. I needed somebody to take care of me. My father was not able to take care of me. And my father later was also hit by a car, making him paralyzed. So I went into foster care at the age of 11. And we had to, once again, think, do we want to send me back to Vietnam where we had family, some familiarity, or do we want me to stay in foster care here in the U.S. so that I could have an education? We decided I needed to stay here. We moved over here, I needed to stay here. But who's going to take care of me? Because we didn't have any other family. So I went to my youth director at my church. Her name is Ann, and I call her Saint Ann to this day because she's truly a saint. And I asked her, I said, do you know anybody I can live with? Imagine an 11-year-old asking me. So she started thinking. She said, let me think about it. Let me ask around. Lucky Donna. Donna was approached, and she was a little reserved about it. I wasn't sure if she was ready to be a mom. But you know, she had always wanted to be a mom. She always wanted to start a family, fall in love. Clearly she loved children. She volunteered at church. And I think she wasn't married yet, didn't have kids yet, is because God was saving room in her heart and her home for me. I, at 11 years old, was going to be her first child. And so I brought everything I owned, moved in with Donna, started going to school at Putnam City Schools, and let me tell you, when I say that I went from poverty to purpose, I say it that way because God had a purpose for me every step of my life, including the unknowns, right? Including not knowing what am I supposed to do. I don't have my mom, I don't have my dad. It's because God put me in the best case scenario. He put me with a woman who is so godly. She has a master's, she's educated, she had made me her priority in every step of the way. And so it was the best case scenario for an 11-year-old girl who didn't have any other family opportunity to, help her grow into the woman that she is meant to be, right? So Donna's amazing. And my father got better. We thought that he would be able to walk for the rest of his life. He was hit by a car on the highway. But here he is, he's able to stand up using a walker to be at my high school at Putnam City and to hear me give my graduation speech. Think about all the sacrifices my parents had gone through, and this was my shining moment to graduate from Putnam City High School and to give my graduation speech. Here I am at the University of Oklahoma, my first live report. Oh my goodness, lotion. So I went to the University of Oklahoma and I leaned into the entrepreneur spirit. So I became a U.S. citizen, I became a naturalized citizen, and that was the first step in pursuing the reunion of my family. You have to have your citizenship, and you have to be at least 21 years old to sponsor anybody over. So, got my citizenship, 18. The next step would be to hire an attorney and work through the process of applying to sponsor someone, getting them a visa, but that's going to be very expensive, right? So in college, I worked multiple jobs and I made hair accessories. I named it Sisters Before Misters. And I leaned into the sorority life, and I sold hair accessories at all these different sorority houses, and I raised thousands of dollars to fund my mom's immigration process. Okay, so I'm skipping a lot of details for the sake of time, but it took former Oklahoma Governor David L. Warren, who was also a U.S. Senator, and also the president of OU, who recently died, and it broke my heart because he did so much for the university and our family. It took him and his son Dan and several important people to basically encourage the U.S. Embassy to expedite my mother's visa to be able to see me graduate from college. So her visa was approved, expedited, and I was able to go to Vietnam the week before my college graduation. All of my professors said that I could make up my exams and my essays and all that because I had other priorities, which is to reunite my family. So we went to Vietnam to say goodbye to our family, packed my mom up, and we got on the plane. America, here we come. So think about that, how special it was to finally sit in an airplane with my mom, things that we take for granted, right? And then, I think the audio should work. Here is the moment we reunite.
My name is Monica, and I saved $1,700 a month with GoodRx. as a single mom with 3 boys, I will take
She spent almost 20 years, half a world away from her mother. Now an OU senior.
I don't think that's loud enough, is it?
We can turn it up for you ladies.
Is it this remote here?
I think it's really the remote person.
Try the remote. If not, we can go grab our manager.
This is not supported. It's good enough? Okay.
She spent almost 20 years, half a world away from her mother. Now an OU senior realizes her American dream. Fox 25's Priscilla Luong joined Ching Doan's family as they share the moment of a lifetime.
My goal has always been to reunite our family. That's always been the #1 goal.
After almost 18 years apart, Ching Doan, a senior at OU, reunites with her mother.
They did more than any parents could ever do, which was put their marriage on hold and did what's best for our family.
Ching and her father came to the U.S. in 1994, but due to paperwork complications, her mother, Thu Trần, could not leave Vietnam.
thì mới quyết định là thôi thì để cho con nó đi để mình.
I didn't realize how long this would take. It was so hard to let her go, but I always hoped one day we would be reunited.
I cried, I held on to my mom, I kicked and screamed, I would not let go.
Ching was 4 years old when she left. Her mother still remembers what it was like to be in an empty house.
I would see her toys at home, then cry. I would see her clothes, then cry.
Có tiền rồi, hồi đó
I had
chưa có
enough
tiền
money then,
đi hết.
it would have all gone.
As he waited for his wife and daughter at Will Rogers Airport, Ching's father, Juan Doan, says seeing his girls walk through the arrivals gate together was a dream come
Tôi
true.
mừng nhiều cái đó, tôi mừng cái này cũng như là tôi cảm
I'm overwhelmed with joy. It's like God answered my prayers. As I grow older and get closer to the end of my life, my one wish is to be closer to my wife and daughter.
We were just so overwhelmed with the love and support.
Friends and loved ones stood by with signs to welcome Ching's mother.
It was almost unreal.
Last week, Ching returned to Vietnam to help her mother move. While it was difficult to have her daughter half a world away, Thu says it was important to let Ching pursue the American dream.
Nhưng mà nếu không cho con
If my daughter stayed in Vietnam, she would not have the same opportunities because our country is so poor.
But as Jing prepares to graduate OU, she knows the greatest gift she can give her parents is to let them grow old together. When Jing became old enough to sponsor her mother to the U.S., she began filing all the paperwork to reunite her family.
I'm so grateful for her.
A bond that time, distance, and obstacles cannot break. Priscilla Luong, Fox 25 News.
Absolutely amazing story there. Ching will graduate from the Gaylord College at OU Friday with a degree in broadcast journalism. She has been honored as the college's outstanding senior and will carry the Gaylord banner at the graduation ceremony. Congrats to her.
It gets me every time. It's okay. You're not crying alone. We're crying together. So yeah, I mean, it was so cool. We had the mascot, OU prom girls and cheerleaders, my sorority sisters, even my elementary school teachers who probably knew
at
Lacey.
night.
Huh?
It's 11 o'clock at night too.
Yeah, it was 11 o'clock at night because the flight kept getting delayed. So yeah, so it was a huge group of people being there to support our family. Most unforgettable day of my life. Okay, so then I went to OU and I graduated with a journalism degree, and I got to carry this giant banner nominated by my peers to represent our college, and again give the graduation speech. And it was unreal for me to stand up there. One, like I'm graduating, the first of my family to graduate, and to have my foster family, my dad who overcame so many injuries and physical trauma, and then my mom reunited with our family there for my graduation. It was incredible. Here they are. And then our first family portrait. Little things that we take for granted, right? So, I mean, the next few slides are some of my, other prouder moments. Representation is so important to me, right? Growing up, like I said, I didn't see very many people who looked like me on TV or achieving a lot of things. And I wanted to make sure that I would use this opportunity, all of the incredible opportunities that God has given me and my parents' sacrifices to make the community a better place and hopefully be a good role model to young girls and maybe those who don't see themselves in this capacity. So I was named one of the top 10 outstanding young Americans. I was shocked to find out people like Elvis Presley and JFK, they were honored with the same award. And I was like, shocked. And it was so cool to get to meet other honorees and hear about their stories as well. I spent 13 years working as a TV news anchor and reporter. I worked in New York, Waco, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, and of course, more recently, Tulsa at Channel 6. And some of my favorite stories often involved veterans, obviously because my father was a veteran, and people who are often overlooked, like people who are incarcerated, people who are in the foster care system. And I think that God put me in all of these circumstances to make me be a better person and a better storyteller and a better community representative. I'm able to remember of my humble beginnings and use what I've learned and my experiences to help people in our community. I don't think I would have been able to tell the stories that I did had I not gone through what I did. Because it made me think of things that maybe the average person overlooks, not because they don't care, but it's never happened to them, so they don't think about those things. But going with these 650 Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. was one of the most humbling and unforgettable moments of my life. They often don't talk about, veterans in general don't often talk about their experiences, but with me, they opened up so much. I think it's because, obviously knowing that I'm from Vietnam and the experiences, we shared some things in common, right? My family, some of the biggest influences in my life, my late father, my mother, and my foster mom, Donna. And I'm just so grateful that God gave me this incredible family in which people love each other so much and so supportive of each other. My biological mom has always said she's so grateful to have Donna love on me and share me with her. And Donna says the same thing. There's never any competition. They call each other sisters. They love each other just like sisters. My mom is so grateful to Donna for taking care of me when she physically couldn't. And Donna's so grateful to my mom for sharing me, giving her a baby. So my dad, at 81 years old, died of cancer very suddenly. Nobody knew he had cancer. So it was very shocking and hard on our family, but we found peace in that he found peace. In his last days being in hospice, he was very happy and smiling and often giggling. And I remember saying, Daddy, why are you giggling? What is so funny? And he said, oh, I'm racing with the angels. He already knew he was going to heaven, and he knew that he was going to a better place. And I think he finally took his last breath when my mom and I held his hand and we said, it's okay, Daddy, your girls have each other. And I think that's what gave him peace to let go, and that's what gives us peace every day to know that he's in a better place. I say the word purpose a lot because I'm reminded every day that we all have a purpose. And it's okay if your purpose changes, right? As we get older, as we have kids, as our careers change, your purpose changes, right? When I was in high school, my purpose was to make the best grades possible so I could go to any college that I wanted to and get all the scholarships that I possibly could, because I knew that I would not be able to afford to go to college unless I had scholarships. So I was very grateful that I had tons of scholarships, so I actually did not pay to go to college. It was all scholarships. So that was my purpose when I was in high school. Then when I was in college, my purpose was to graduate with my degree and also to have my mom see me graduate. So I was able to achieve that purpose. In my early 20s, my purpose was to be the best journalist I possibly could, represent our community, represent the underserved, and also at the same time help my parents with transitioning after living apart for 18 years. That was my purpose. In my early 30s, as my parents aged and my father's health declined drastically, my purpose was to be a really good caregiver to my dad, knowing that he was turning 80 and he died at 81 years old. But I knew that his life on earth was limited, just like all of ours are, but his health was declining. So that's why I moved back to Oklahoma so we could be closer to family. So my purpose was to make sure my dad's last years of his life would be good. So after 13 years of working in TV, I decided my purpose was no longer working in TV. My purpose was to be the best wife and hopefully future mom possible. So I recently left my job at TV News as my contract was ending. So my contract ended in January. So instead of renewing my contract, I decided that I wanted to take a break from TV and pursue my next purpose, like I said, which was to be a good wife to my husband, Steve. We've been married for 15 months. And he's incredible. You know, when we started dating, on the second date, I told him that my mom lives with me and we're a package deal. So you can either take this as a warning and run, or you can embrace it. And he decided to embrace it, and he came over for dinner not long after. And I don't know if it was her cooking or her charm, but we wowed him and he decided to take on this package deal. So my mom lives with us and our two little adopted dogs, Bruce and Brookie. And we are just one happy family in which we speak 3 languages in our house. We speak Vietnamese, English, and Spanish. And our dogs understand all 3 languages. We train them, yeah. They're so funny. I don't know how they're British, so we have a lot of fun together. And I just so feel like that now at 35 years old, this is that stage of my life in which I just feel so fulfilled and so grateful for the opportunity to have lived the life that I live and be able to make up for a lot of lost time with my beautiful mom. And she's so funny. We prank her every day and she puts up with us. But these are photos of my mom and her siblings. And the reason I'm showing this is I was grateful 2 years ago. I took my mom to Vietnam and my husband too, but she got to spend time with her siblings, and we had no idea that after our trip, a few months later, that her sister would die suddenly of cancer. So that's all to say that, life is so short, and you just never know. Take that vacation, spend time with your loved ones. You never know. She was healthy and just full of life, and she died of cancer suddenly a few months later. And then here's my sister. She had been battling breast cancer for several years in Vietnam, and here I was able to do a bunch of different fundraisers and send her money every month for chemo and radiation, and spend time with her when we were in Vietnam, and she died the week before my wedding. So again, just things were so sudden, but I'm so grateful we took this trip. We took a pause on life because we lost my dad, and I was like, you know what? Life is too short. Let's go on this trip. So we did, and I'm so grateful that we did because we got to spend great time with her. And then our wedding at Holy Family Cathedral, so we're Catholic, and that's where we go to church, and the bishop celebrated our wedding, so we're very grateful for that. Yes, so there's downtown Tulsa on our wedding day, December 2nd. Yes. And I don't know if y'all follow me on social media, but we recently surprised my mom with a house. And she was completely shocked. She had no idea we bought a house. We spent months renovating it. We brought her over to the house, told her we were going to a friend's house for brunch. She came over, and then it didn't click to her that this house is empty. There's no furniture. Oh, this is a very nice house. And she was also like, how do they eat, But she fell for it, and it's posted on my Instagram and Facebook if you all want to watch it. I'm going to put you on it. But it's hilarious. So now we live in this new house that she has the largest room in the house. We call her Queen, and it's her Queen Suite. So she she could possibly need. And then, yeah, that's just business stuff. But I think I've probably taken enough of your time. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Yes. Okay. So cool story about that. So I became a naturalized citizen, and on the 10th anniversary of my citizenship, she became a citizen. Yeah. And the bonus part was, this was when I lived in Omaha, Nebraska. The naturalization office found out that I became a citizen, 10 years prior, and that, we had this story of being apart for 18 years. So I was the speaker at her graduation. And of course, my news station did a story about it. This again was in Omaha, Nebraska. And there were all kinds of articles about, the American dream still exists, right? And how grateful we are to be in America. We're so grateful, yeah. Any other questions? Amazing. What's your question?
My question is, were you nervous about going back to Vietnam, being able to get back to the United States?
So interesting, that's a great question. I was never nervous because I had done a lot of research, and what's interesting is even though Vietnam is considered a communist country, you probably couldn't even tell if you went there. Everybody's very friendly, nobody looks at you differently if you're a tourist. It's actually pretty safe. There's no gun violence. People don't own guns there. Police do, but the general public, There's petty theft, but it's very rare that you hear about violence in Vietnam. I think it's because the government is so harsh on lawbreakers that people, there's petty theft maybe, but I've never even experienced theft in Vietnam. I've been back 10 times, and I've never had anything stolen.
It's a very popular vacation destination.
Yes, it's very popular because one, everything is so affordable, and two, the government has done a really good job of promoting tourism and making things honestly safe for everybody. And a lot of people know English in Vietnam. A lot of signs are in English. A lot of now in school, we learn Spanish here. Everybody learns English in school. So they've really seen the value of being basically accommodating to your guests, right? When you're accommodating to your guests, they come and visit you and they bring you money, right? So it's a great concept. Every time you go to Vietnam, they treat visitors like royalty. Honestly, they're just very accommodating to you. I've never felt scared or harassed or uncomfortable in any way. And actually, a lot of times I blend in. They don't even know that I'm a tourist. Because I speak the language and then I barter. Yeah, so if you go over and you start bartering, they're going to think you're local. Yeah. Any other questions?
There is Catherine Miller. Catherine? We have. Was that an amazing? Oh, yes. Thank you, Jen, for absolutely outstanding.
Here's my contact information, even though it's probably it's in the World Act, but if you wanted to follow me on social media and see kind of our daily life, we post about my mom and funny videos with her and things like that. That's on all of my social media. Thank you.
She is a very hard act to follow. Okay.